Honda just did the one thing Harley never dared: make cruisers cheap again. No press tour, no warning, just a sub-$10,000 knockout shaking the industry's core. But here's the kicker. This bike hides a detail that could change the way you see Harley forever. And trust me, you'll want to stick around until the very end, because that reveal, it might make you rethink everything you thought you knew about cruisers. The quiet re-entry that landed like a punch. No countdown clocks, no throwback campaign. Honda simply put a number on the tank, $9,999, and rolled the Rebel 1100 onto showroom floors. That single decision did more than generate headlines. It reframed the conversation around cruisers that had drifted into luxury cosplay. For years, Harley-Davidson complicated its identity chasing margin at the top, while Indian polished its image toward boutique refinement. Honda watched. It didn't promise to resurrect the VTX era or cosplay Americana. It returned with a cleaner thesis: build a modern cruiser that regular riders can actually buy, ride, and maintain, then let the math do the talking. The execution is the story. The Rebel 1100 shares proven architecture with the Africa Twin's parallel twin, pairing usable torque with durability and serviceability. DCT is optional, not dogma, lowering the intimidation barrier without alienating purists. The design trims chrome theater in favor of purposeful welds, tidy electronics, and a riding position that reads daily use instead of weekend alter. It's not nostalgia denial, it's nostalgia discipline. Honda cut everything that didn't help a rider ride. Timing mattered too. After a long, quiet pullback from heavyweight cruisers, Honda re-enters precisely when buyers are done paying extra for mythology and dealer add-ons that balloon out the door prices. Instead of meeting Harley and Indian on the stage of heritage, Honda stepped through the side door with a price that holds up in reality, not just on spec sheets. There's no stripped gotcha base trim, no asterisk next to the MSRP. The value is up front, and the platform scale underneath it is real. Crucially, the message isn't Harley but cheaper, it's cruiser but current. Lightweight feel, approachable ergonomics, familiar Honda reliability, and enough performance to be fun without requiring a second mortgage. In an ecosystem where brands often shout to mask uncertainty, Honda's silence reads like confidence. It didn't rehearse a comeback myth, it deployed a product that fits the era. So yes, the $9,999 headline was the hook. But the deeper impact is what it implies about Honda's intent, a re-entry defined by manufacturing discipline and rider relevance, not costume drama. That's why this move lands like a punch. It doesn't try to win the past. It simply owns the present. But to understand just how significant this return is, we need to look at what Honda walked away from, and what the market became in its absence. How the cruiser faded, and why Honda waited. There was a time when Honda dominated the cruiser segment with machines like the Shadow line and the VTX series. These bikes weren't cheap imitations of Harley. They were global-class machines that offered reliability, smooth torque, and styling that resonated with a new generation of riders. And yet over time, Honda pulled back, slowly, quietly. The models were discontinued. The ads vanished. The showroom space shrank. It wasn't a crash, it was a slow fade. While Honda stepped away, the rest of the industry scrambled to fill the gap. Harley doubled down on premium builds and chrome-heavy nostalgia. Indian roared back with muscle and marketing. Even Royal Enfield, once written off as a niche export brand, began gaining traction with stripped-down, vintage-styled machines priced for first-timers. The cruiser space didn't die. It changed. It got leaner, less theatrical, more global. The idea of the cruiser as a rebellious, leather-clad statement of American identity began to erode. Younger riders didn't want to buy into a lifestyle. Many just wanted something cool, simple, and affordable. But most manufacturers didn't understand that shift. They continued to treat cruisers like museum pieces, oversized, overpriced, and overburdened with legacy. Honda's decision to step back may have looked like defeat at the time. In hindsight, it was preservation. They avoided the trap of inflating a shrinking bubble. And now, with the Rebel 500 and 1100 leading the charge, Honda has redefined what a cruiser can be. Clean lines, lightweight frames, automatic options, subtle tech, no pretension. What Honda is doing today isn't nostalgic, it's necessary. And the pricing? That's where the strategy becomes truly brutal. We curated the top gear so you don't waste time hunting. Grab what works in the description. Breaking the $10,000 wall by design. In an industry where cruisers often come with luxury-level price tags, Honda's move to deliver a full-size motorcycle under $10,000 wasn't just bold, it was engineered. At $9,999, the Rebel 1100 sits well below comparable models from Indian and Harley Davidson. And unlike those brands, Honda didn't get there by cutting corners. It got there by cutting everything that didn't matter. Start with the engine. The Rebel 1100 borrows heavily from the Africa Twin's parallel twin, a proven, efficient power plant that delivers more than enough grunt for real-world cruising. Then there's the dual-clutch transmission, Honda's DCT system, which offers automatic shifting without losing the mechanical connection that riders crave. It's a modern solution for riders who want ease without compromise. Materials, too, were chosen with precision. Instead of drenching the frame in chrome or layering on heavy nostalgia, Honda focused on clean welds, minimal plastics, and purposeful design. Fewer components mean fewer costs. A shorter supply chain means faster production, and Honda's global manufacturing scale allowed them to source, assemble, and ship the Rebel with ruthless efficiency. This wasn't magic, it was manufacturing discipline. Honda didn't sacrifice quality, they sacrificed fluff. Where other companies inflate margins through lifestyle branding and accessory bundles, Honda trimmed fat and delivered muscle. The result is a bike that feels more premium than its price tag suggests, not because of what it has, but because of what it doesn't pretend to be. And now, the competition has no choice but to respond. All right, listen up. We dug up all the information so you don't have to. That's got to be worth a subscribe, right? Come on, we earned it. Nightster's price cut, not a plan. Harley Davidson may have surprised the industry with its sub-$10,000 Nightster, but beneath the surface, that move reveals more desperation than direction. On paper, it looks like Harley has responded to Honda's affordability assault. In practice, it's a partial measure, a pivot without the foundation to hold. The pricing adjustment isn't supported by supply chain restructuring, global cost controls, or manufacturing realignment. It's simply a sticker change slapped onto a decades-old business model. While Honda's pricing reflects years of investment in modular platforms, labor efficiency, and battery partnerships, Harley's appears reactive, not strategic. The cracks show when you enter the showroom. Limited dealer inventories, rigid financing plans, and unpredictable supply timelines have made it clear that Harley's price drop is more marketing experiment than paradigm shift. The Nightster may technically start below $10,000, but by the time a rider adds fees, freight, and essential accessories, the final out-the-door cost veers dangerously close to Harley's old territory. In contrast, Honda's pricing includes what modern riders expect as standard: performance, tech, and comfort without add-on inflation. More importantly, Harley's move fails to reimagine its customer experience. There's no new service model, no revised financing plan, no innovation in how the product reaches riders. Harley didn't redesign its business, it just dropped the price on one model and hoped no one would notice the rest still felt premium priced. Honda's strategy wasn't just about numbers, it was about building a new foundation. Harley's remains built on chrome, tradition, and shrinking patience. And while Harley clings to surface-level change, Indian is struggling with an entirely different identity crisis, a brand between premium and purpose. When Indian motorcycles relaunched under Polaris, it looked poised to finally challenge Harley's dominance. The Scout, Scout 60, and Chief models were aggressive, muscular, and priced with intent. But in recent years, Indian's strategy has drifted from its roots. The prices have quietly crept upward, and with them, a certain distance has formed between the brand and the buyers it once fought to win. Today, Indian's entry-level offerings edge closer to premium pricing. And in doing so, they've lost the advantage that once defined them: accessibility. This isn't just about the sticker on the tank, it's about the message those numbers send. When the Scout 60 launched below $10,000, it told new riders, "We want you." It said performance didn't have to come with exclusivity. Now those same buyers see Indian creeping into Harley's old lane, pushing upgraded trims, exclusive finishes, and lifestyle branding that feels more boutique than blue-collar. The company that once sold rebellion now markets refinement. And that shift has left many wondering whether Indian still knows who its riders are. The result? A strategic vacuum. Riders who are new, cost-conscious, or simply uninterested in image-first motorcycles are looking elsewhere. And right now, Honda is exactly where they're turning. The Rebel 1100, priced comfortably under $10,000, isn't trying to be something it's not. It offers performance, reliability, and design without the brand theatrics. Indian built a bridge from Harley's excess to something fresher, but forgot to finish paving the way for those who would cross it. And as Indian repositions itself, another rival has slipped through the cracks, one that doesn't care about style wars or heritage at all. Minimalism as a business model. Royal Enfield has never tried to outstyle Harley or outspec Honda. Its goal has always been simpler: build beautiful, timeless motorcycles that work and make them dirt cheap. And in a post-COVID world of shrinking incomes and shifting values, that simplicity has become a powerful weapon. The Meteor 350 and Interceptor 650 now dominate global cruiser markets, not because they're faster or flashier, but because they offer honesty. They give riders the feel of a classic bike without the debt of a modern one. Royal Enfield's strength lies in what it omits: no unnecessary tech, no bloated feature lists, no emotional manipulation. Just steel, rubber, and engines tuned for simplicity. And this raw approach is attracting riders in places both Harley and Honda have neglected. In Southeast Asia, Latin America, and increasingly in North American urban centers, riders are choosing Royal Enfield not because it's a compromise, but because it reflects their values: minimalism, function, and character over branding. That's why Royal Enfield's challenge to Honda isn't technological, it's philosophical. Honda builds with precision and polish. Enfield builds with texture. One represents the future of mobility, the other the past reimagined. But both now compete for the same emerging buyer: the young commuter, the weekend wanderer, the practical minimalist. Enfield doesn't want Honda's crown. It just wants its own space, and it's taking it, inch by inch. And while Honda watches Royal Enfield nibble at its flank, it now finds something more familiar stirring in its rear view. Yamaha and Kawasaki have entered the fight. Steady hands. Yamaha and Kawasaki hold the line. It was only a matter of time. While Harley stumbled and Honda surged, Japan's other two-wheel giants, Yamaha and Kawasaki, began sharpening their blades. Quietly, steadily, they've retooled their cruiser offerings for a new era. The Yamaha Bolt, once seen as a fringe urban cruiser, has shed weight, tightened its lines, and now delivers torque and simplicity with none of the Harley baggage. It does not shout. It hums. Meanwhile, Kawasaki's Vulcan S remains one of the most intelligently designed beginner to intermediate cruisers on the market. Its adjustable ergonomics, parallel twin engine, and sub-$10,000 price point give it a level of customization and value that almost no other manufacturer in the segment can match. These machines are not after Harley's identity. They're not copying Honda either. They're simply defending what they've always done quietly: build competent, confident bikes that sell themselves. For years, these models were overlooked in the American cruiser conversation. Too soft, too simple, too subtle. But the market has shifted. Flash no longer wins. Weight is no longer power. Cost is no longer assumed. And that has brought Yamaha and Kawasaki back into relevance, not because they changed, but because the world around them did. Riders are now looking at these brands and seeing something precious: sanity. As Honda redraws the cruiser map, Yamaha and Kawasaki are not challenging its throne. They're holding their lines, protecting their flanks, and refusing to be left behind. Because while Harley tries to rediscover itself and Indian fumbles with identity, the rest of Japan is remembering that consistency, not charisma, is what keeps a rider coming back. DCT, accessibility disguised as convenience. Honda's dual-clutch transmission didn't debut with fireworks. There was no viral campaign, no emotionally charged ad showing chrome-streaked rebels roaring down desert highways. Instead, Honda introduced it quietly, first in sport tourers, then in adventure bikes, and eventually in the Rebel 1100 Cruiser. It felt like a convenience feature at first, almost like an afterthought. But make no mistake, this was no technical footnote. The DCT was Honda's Trojan horse, designed to smuggle in an entirely new class of riders. This was never about shaving lap times or competing with European superbikes. It was about removing the friction points that kept curious newcomers from becoming committed owners. Think about the average new rider. They're not coming from a background of motocross weekends or vintage wrenching. They're coming from automatic cars, urban commutes, and app-driven habits. They don't want to learn how to feather a clutch at a red light. They want something that just works. DCT made motorcycles more accessible without making them feel neutered. By eliminating the intimidation factor of the clutch and shifting process, Honda lowered the barrier to entry, especially for younger, city-based or returning riders. It's a feature that invites, not dares, you to ride. And with every new DCT customer, Honda isn't just gaining a sale, it's cultivating a habit. These aren't just gearheads, they're loyalists in the making. People who might have never considered two wheels are now stepping into the market with quiet confidence. And this, more than anything, reveals the genius of Honda's design philosophy. They're not chasing adrenaline, they're engineering inclusion. And that subtle shift is rewriting who motorcycles are really for. Now that we've seen how a single piece of engineering is transforming access, we need to zoom out. Because DCT is only one piece of a much larger machine. Still here? Still not subscribed? Buddy, we've given you more information than your local dealer. Show some love. Hit that button. One company, many engines. The real advantage. Most people know Honda for cars and motorcycles. But the truth is, Honda's business model was never just about transportation. It was about power. From lawnmowers to jet engines, from portable generators to marine motors, Honda's DNA has always been embedded in one word: versatility. And that DNA is what allows the company to pull off moves that competitors simply can't. While Harley-Davidson clung tightly to the mythology of motorcycles and Indian struggled to define itself beyond Harley's shadow, Honda was building a different empire, quietly, methodically, globally. They weren't just selling machines, they were embedding themselves into every facet of modern life. A Honda motor might power your boat, another might power your snowblower, yet another might sit under the hood of your neighbor's car. That kind of ecosystem doesn't just generate revenue, it builds trust. This matters because when Honda re-entered the cruiser market with the Rebel 1100, they weren't doing it from scratch. They weren't betting the farm. They were deploying one more unit in a sprawling, deeply integrated infrastructure. The cruiser wasn't the main dish. It was a smart side move supported by an industrial foundation other manufacturers don't have. And that's the real threat to legacy players. Honda doesn't need the Rebel to win, but if it does win, it's because everything else behind it made it possible. This cross-sector strength also enables Honda to absorb losses in ways Harley or Indian never could. Honda doesn't flinch if a bike sells under $10,000 because they're playing on a different balance sheet, one that includes robotics, aircraft engines, solar energy, and autonomous driving R&D. So when we talk about Honda shaking the cruiser world, it's not just a product play. It's a strategic ripple from a company that's been reshaping mobility for decades. And to understand how they're able to move this fast, you have to look at how they build. Logistics, not luck. The post-COVID edge. When COVID-19 brought the global motorcycle industry to its knees, most brands stumbled through parts shortages, delivery delays, and rising production costs. Dealerships had empty floors. Customers faced 6-month wait times. Harley had to cut production cycles. Even Yamaha and Kawasaki struggled to maintain consistency. Honda, by contrast, showed up early and left with the last word. Their supply chains didn't just survive, they adapted. This wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of a long-term logistical strategy built on modularity and distributed risk. Honda doesn't rely on single-source suppliers. They don't build every bike in one region. Their manufacturing ecosystem is a web, flexible, redundant, and shock-proof. When a chip shortage hit Taiwan, Honda rerouted sourcing to Southeast Asia. When a factory delay slowed production in Japan, they shifted demand fulfillment to Thailand. It wasn't panic, it was protocol. That agility gave Honda an enormous advantage during the post-pandemic recovery. While others were scrambling to explain to customers why their bikes weren't arriving, Honda dealerships were restocking and fulfilling orders with minimal delay. In a climate where patience is scarce and attention spans are shorter than ever, that reliability translated directly into trust and revenue. Even more impressively, Honda's cost management during this time didn't rely on cutting corners. It relied on being prepared, inventory buffers, shared platform parts across models, reduced dependency on high-risk materials. This wasn't improvisation, it was blueprint execution. And now, that same blueprint is fueling their expansion in the cruiser market. When a brand can deliver bikes on time, under budget, and with fewer headaches, they're not just offering a product, they're offering confidence. And in a post-COVID economy, confidence sells. But who's actually buying into this machine? To understand Honda's true advantage, we have to leave the spreadsheets and look at the people behind the helmets. Honda's new core customer. Harley-Davidson built its brand on rebellion, noise, and Americana. Its core customer has long been the seasoned rider, the road veteran, the lifestyle biker, the weekend warrior with chrome pride. But Honda? Honda is after someone else entirely. The target isn't a former Harley loyalist looking for a cheaper ride. It's a new kind of motorcyclist, one raised on smartphones and streaming, who values utility over nostalgia. Someone who doesn't care how loud the exhaust is, but does care how easy it is to park on a city street. Someone who compares monthly payments to gym memberships, not truck loans. Honda understands that brand loyalty today isn't inherited. It's earned every day with reliability, affordability, and simplicity. Their ideal customer isn't looking for a cultural badge. They're looking for a ride that feels like it fits their life. That's why the Rebel 1100 doesn't lean into outlaw posturing. It leans into usability, upright ergonomics, balanced weight, clean styling, optional DCT. It's designed to not intimidate. This buyer isn't necessarily in a club. They might be a solo commuter, a young urban rider, or someone who just wants a break from car payments. They might never read a bike magazine, but they'll read every review. They'll compare maintenance costs. They'll notice fuel efficiency. And they'll share their experience, not with a dealer, but with their network. The ripple effects of that identity shift were just getting started. Price, pride, and the passport stamp. The moment Honda's sub-$10,000 cruiser hit American soil, it triggered more than just competitor anxiety. It ignited a policy-level debate that Washington wasn't ready for. Because behind every motorcycle is a geopolitical question. Where was it made? Who built it? And what does that say about national pride? For decades, Made in America was a marketing advantage. It stood for union jobs, domestic supply chains, and cultural sovereignty. But in the new era of global production, that phrase has become harder to defend and harder to define. Honda's pricing advantage didn't materialize from thin air. It was built on an international production model honed over decades, strategic partnerships in Thailand, Vietnam, and Mexico, battery supply chain dominance in Japan and China, logistics centers that span continents. When President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on imported motorcycle parts, American manufacturers like Harley were hit with costs they could not absorb. Honda, meanwhile, had already adapted. It was built for economic war zones. It ducked under the tariff radar with precision, sourcing parts regionally, assembling strategically, and beating American brands at their own game. And that's where the political reckoning begins. Blue-collar voters, many of whom form the core consumer base for American-made bikes, are now forced to confront a painful contradiction. The companies they believed in cannot afford to produce bikes on American soil. Not because they betrayed their roots, but because the system makes it financially impossible. When a Honda Rebel 1100 costs less than a Harley-Davidson Sportster S, voters don't blame Japan. They start asking why American factories cost more, why labor is outsourced, and why union jobs are disappearing. This isn't about nationalism versus globalization, it's about math. And in this case, math is forcing even the most patriotic riders to reconsider what Made in America really means. Does it mean more debt? Does it mean sacrificing features or reliability? Or does it mean clinging to an industrial myth that no longer pays the bills? Honda didn't just build a better price point, it exposed a deeper truth. Emotional patriotism collapses under economic pressure. And in the dealerships across the country, that pressure is already boiling over. What dealers do when sentiment won't sell. If identity is fractured and politics are in flux, nowhere is the impact more immediate than on dealership floors. For decades, Harley-Davidson and Indian showrooms served as temples, places where the community gathered, where dreams were sold, where chrome shined under spotlights. But those floors are quieter now, and the dealers who once stood proudly behind American brands are facing a decision they never expected to make: pivot to Honda or go out of business. This shift isn't driven by disloyalty, it's driven by inventory. Honda models move. They don't just sit. In states like Ohio, Texas, and South Carolina, regional dealers have reported month-over-month increases in Honda Cruiser sales by as much as 40%. Some of these same shops had Harley units sitting untouched for over 6 months. And it's not just the entry-level models. Honda's DCT-equipped variants are catching on with older riders who don't want to downshift their way into joint pain. The product speaks for itself, and the customers are listening. Dealership owners are business people first. And in a tightening market with rising interest rates, they cannot afford to romanticize brand heritage if it means losing their livelihood. The margins on Honda units may not be astronomical, but the turnover is reliable. The service packages are predictable, and the customer satisfaction is measurably higher. In an era where riders are thinking like buyers, not like worshipers, that difference matters. Some Harley-exclusive dealers have quietly begun applying for Honda certifications. Others have signed distribution deals under separate LLCs, hoping to avoid backlash from the brand faithful. A few have even consolidated locations, offering Harley, Indian, and Honda models under the same roof. The sacred has become practical. The tribal has become transactional. And while some see this as betrayal, others see it as reality. The customers aren't waiting for brands to rediscover their soul. They're buying what works, what's priced right, and what feels real. That's the new standard. And it leads to the bigger question hanging over the next decade. The next decade belongs to clarity. Predicting winners used to be easy. The loudest badge, the fattest catalogs, the biggest rallies. That playbook is dated. Over the next 10 years, the market will reward brands that know exactly who they serve and design backward from that rider's life. Honda's current edge isn't a single model or spec figure, it's clarity. The Rebel 1100 at $9,999 isn't a stunt. It's a statement about priorities: price discipline, platform reuse, approachable ergonomics, and options like DCT that expand who can ride without diluting why they ride. This doesn't erase Harley or Indian. It reframes their task. Harley can still harness unmatched cultural resonance, but resonance without access becomes museum art. If Milwaukee aligns pricing with production reality, simplifies trims, and modernizes the path to ownership, inventory transparency, saner fees, flexible financing, it can convert heritage into habit. Indian's design credibility remains strong. Its risk is drifting upscale until the entry bridge cracks. Re-anchoring an attainable Scout class proposition with clear value could turn drift into direction. Royal Enfield, Yamaha, and Kawasaki complicate any easy forecast on purpose. Enfield's honesty, minimal tech, maximum charm has product market fit wherever riders prize character over clutter. Yamaha and Kawasaki win on competence that doesn't need applause. Sane weight, intelligible ergonomics, and prices that don't require a spreadsheet defense. None of these brands need to beat Honda to succeed. They need to stay legible to their buyer and ruthless about out-the-door reality. Clarity also means supply chain truth. Post-pandemic, promises don't matter if bikes don't land. Honda's logistics advantage set the tone, but anyone willing to prune SKUs, share components, and regionalize assembly can play. The winner's circle won't be the loudest showroom or the glossiest ad. It'll be the brand that consistently delivers the bike people researched last night to the dealership this weekend at the price they actually saw. So who wins? The brand that wastes the fewest words between a rider's need and a rider's keys. Right now, Honda owns that sentence. But the door isn't locked. If rivals trade performance theater for purchase truth, weight, seat height, payment, delivery, this decade becomes competitive again. If they don't, premium will quietly rename itself optional, and the volume will flow to whoever kept things simple. In a crowded market, clarity isn't a tagline, it's the entire strategy. That's the landscape. Less chrome, more calculus, and a $9,999 Honda forcing everyone to show their homework. Your call. Who made the smarter move? Honda, Harley, or Indian? Drop your pick below. Whichever gets the most comments will win. Seen real-world pricing or inventory swings near you? Share them. Like and subscribe if you want more no-fluff breakdowns the brands would rather you skip. You skip.